Welcome to Healing Step to Wellness. I'm Dr. J.
I'm May.
Your trusted guide to whole person health, one step
And one bite at a time.
Today we have the pleasure of having Dr. Rainey with us.
Yeah, I mean, this is like way overdue, right? We have been thinking about Dr. Rainey, and then now we have a pleasure to have her. So, you know what? Since I have this prepared, I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Dr. Rainey's bio, and then I'm going to have invite Dr. Rainey to introduce herself, kind of keeping to the highlight and then what is up to date. So, Dr. Rainey is currently triple board certified in preventive medicine, lifestyle medicine, and family medicine. And she is very dedicated to helping people with a lifestyle change in improving the health, span, and overall well-being with the foundation of family medicine. She served as a medical director for an active duty Air Force clinic before completing a preventive medicine fellowship at Mayo Clinic and earning her Master of Public Health from the University of Minnesota, and now part of a Mayo Clinic's executive health and breast clinic teams. She focuses on whole person wellness, lifestyle optimization, and plant forward nutrition, emphasizing practical, sustainable strategies that empower individuals to take charge of their health. She brings a special interest in making evidence based lifestyle habits realistic and accessible for everyday life. And outside of her work, she enjoys time with her husband and two young boys who inspire her to make healthy living fun, delicious, and family friendly. So it sounds like there are a lot of things are very aligned with Rochester County Lotus House Foundation, and those terms sound so familiar. So
Absolutely.
we are excited to have you here. And by the way, I think we probably want to drill on something that appeared to be very interesting on your bio. So here you go. Take over.
I know. I think you said it all.
We need more detail, more juice.
A long road to Mayo Clinic, and I essentially took a pretty non-traditional pathway. My dad was a doctor in the Air Force, in fact, and I spent many years saying I'll never do that, either one of those things. So it took me about 7 years out of college to decide that I want to go to medical school as a non-traditional older student. Went to the Oakland University William Beaumont School of Medicine, which was almost brand new. I was their second class out in Michigan.
Wow.
And decided to do the health professions scholarship during that time. So the Air Force paid for my medical school, and I paid back the Air Force after that during my family medicine residency and after in Biloxi, Mississippi, where I practiced in primary care, but also occupational medicine with no extra training essentially at that point in time in the Air Force. But I really appreciated my time there. Unfortunately, I stole my husband out of his South Florida snorkeling and dolphin and first mate and boat captain life. And he and I and our two sons came up to Minnesota, where my family's actually in town here. So I've never lived in Rochester, but it's like a family home already.
Wow. Welcome to Rochester.
I was trying not to touch your husband's part yet.
Well, there are some others great activity that he can do. Yeah. So like
I keep thinking about Peter Pan, Neverland. Anyway, so Dr. Rainey,
the snow, love the snow.
So what inspired your journey into lifestyle medicine? Was there a particular patient or moment that shifted your perspective on health?
I think my own journey led me to this moment. When I was in the Air Force, I began thinking about this point of view, as they called it, lifestyle and performance medicine in the
Mm.
Air Force. And I really liked that framing. It was fairly new at that point in time. And I just took interest in that because when I was pregnant with my two lovely boys, I had diabetes in both pregnancies
Mm.
and, pretty much managed it with string cheese and eggs and protein, right? And the sugars looked fine. And you thought we're in good shape here. But it didn't quit after I gave birth, which it was supposed to, right? It was just supposed to go away with once you gave birth. And it just sort of continued to be something that I needed to monitor. And so I got interested in what can I do for my blood sugars? And that's when this lifestyle medicine started coming up. And in the fall of 2023, I went to my first American College of Lifestyle Medicine conference and was blown away. All of the people, 2,000 participants or something like that, vibrant people with such passion about their work with lifestyle medicine. The food was all plant-based and amazing. And boy, did I come back to my family with some challenges and excitement about what we were going to change, and so that was really the first moment that we started making these consistent shifts in what we considered to be a fairly healthy American dietary pattern with lots of treats, is how I would put it. And that kind of snowballed over time, over the next couple of years, and continuing to go to the lifestyle medicine conferences and practice and get excited about that. And so that was really the first step, was that lifestyle medicine conference on top of my own health journey.
But
Yeah.
I want to let you know, the food at ACLM has no comparison to what we offer at our symposium. Just don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
It was good.
Okay, I remember we also attended ACOM in 2023. I think that was the last time. Oh, Dr. J, you gave a talk about the
Okay,
nutrition
lifestyle medicine approach
in
to
Denver, right?
yeah,
In Denver.
Denver.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. What a what an inspiring journey in the beginning. I think we always that kind of remind us way back to 2014 in fall. That was we attended our first lifestyle medicine conference. That was in San Diego. And it was just like my head was spinning like, wow, this is a kept secret. Where are the rest of the doctors been doing? Like,
Yeah.
and it was like a lot of physicians, speakers. I mean, we followed Dr. Joe Furman, so we knew that he was he had a special presentation. But I mean, again, that proof that ACOM has done a great job, inspired healthcare profession at many levels, especially physicians like you.
Yeah, I
So,
think
yeah.
in primary care, you say, eat well and exercise, and you
Mm,
put your tiny little blurb in there, but I was afraid of talking about it. I didn't want to bring up sleep and exercise and nutrition because I didn't have all the tools that I learned over time. And going and getting board certified through American Board of Lifestyle Medicine was one of the steps that I took to give me those tools. And now, I mean, I could talk for hours about that. I'm very excited, but it starts with you and experiencing it yourself and within your
hmm
family. And that's
hmm
really that ripple effect that we're
Definitely.
trying to get.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I'm so glad that this is such a gift to Rochester. We have a physician like you in community in general that walk the talk, and be able to even involve with some community work. Well, before we get into that, so I'm so curious about your day-to-day practice. You are you practice in the area is called executive health. So can you share with us what that looked like and what do you do every day?
Yes. So I chose to work in the executive health practice because I liked the idea of being able to have impact with a motivated population, which are executives, executive level people with whatever level of businesses around the country that come to you. They want to try and get a handle on their health, a snapshot in time. What can I do? Prevention is key in this group because they want to keep working and they have potential strong influence over many employees. And I really liked that ripple effect as well. So I liked that being able to engage with somebody who was already starting to think in that direction, who may not have heard what I have to share about lifestyle medicine. So my days are fortunate to have a little bit more generous of a time frame with my patients to really expand upon the pillars of lifestyle medicine, all of the different groups. I include that in every single one of my visits. We talk about their health concerns, and then I go right into the pillars and ask them what's going on in their lives in this, and get curious and start listening to where there could be opportunities for health, health in general, but health span optimization is how I put it. I think really, responding to the optimizing phrase instead of a correction, it's more like, how can we find these opportunities, especially the opportunities on our plates?
So since they are executives, in their life, probably what consider normal or common will be the best steak, best wine, best cuisine they could get. So how do you guide your patient when they feel overwhelmed or unsure where to start?
Yes, so I meet them where they're at, but I don't leave them there. It's kind of how I like to view it. I get curious. I'm a foodie too. I love delicious food, and we meet them there. We talk about what kind of food they like. We talk about culturally what's expected at a certain, level, or just even within their own personal cultures and families, what is a good time to them, what's a celebratory meal. If they're having a little bit of, well, this is so much going on, where do we start? We pick one thing that usually comes up pretty quickly upon discussion of what does their day look like. We think about I ask them about their meals. What does a day look like? And I don't let them stop there by saying, yeah, eat healthy, which I used to. You just be like, yep, okay, I take your word for it, you eat healthy. No, I say, what does that look like? What does a breakfast look like? What does a lunch look like? And then we go through it and I allow them to share all of that. And then they typically, when I show them a visual of, the spectrum of how we're trying to add to our plates of all these colorful whole foods and crowd out some of the stuff on the other side, they start to explain what things are, they know they could probably work on, or what things they're really attached to. And we go from there and we pick one thing and talk about, how can we swap it? How can we make it delicious and still be celebratory for you? Or if you're out on the go, you're at an airport and you really have no time for anything, can you find that dry roasted edamame snack? Things that we talk about, the 14 grams of protein in a handful, that's twice a cheese stick. And they start to get excited about it and open to those shifts. So by the end of our talk, we definitely have at least a couple of things that they're going to move forward with. And I tell you, it's usually the dry roasted edamame.
Good.
So besides the nutrition, what other common challenges that come to this group of a population? When you're talking about many health pillar, and which health pillar that pretend to be kind of quite important for them?
Stress management is huge. Certainly there's a lot of stress, but it depends on, their experience with it, what stage of their career they're in, and what strategies they have for coping. So we talk about what coping strategies do you use? Do you feel you have coping strategies? We all have a level of stress. And that is an opportunity to talk about, mindfulness within their day. About 10 years ago now, I trained with Dr. Sood when I was in medical
Oh,
on
wow.
stress management and resilience training, that program that he came through. And what really struck me about that held with me at that point in time, was that instead of adding on to your day, it's how you incorporate it throughout your day. To not, one more thing on my checklist, I got to meditate. Instead, it's thinking, how do I interpret the events that happen to me? How do I reframe how do I look for opportunities? And I laugh with them at first. I say, every time when I learned about this, I was in the car in traffic and I'd be stuck and getting angry, and I'd say, oh, what an opportunity this is for me to practice some form of mindfulness. And then after time, it really comes to you quicker and quicker, and you do start to see things as opportunities. And I tell them, we talk about that. They relate to that. At one point in time, I share the study that I, heard that when you get so uptight and angry and stressed out, your blood thickens, which increases your risk of heart attack and stroke. And we think smooth blood, in a way that you can have sort of those triggers. And if all else fails, just assume the person in the other car is on their way to the hospital. They're probably not, but what does it hurt?
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is in Rochester, you probably don't have a lot of traffic jams. It was very hard to have traffic jams.
That's rush minute, right?
Yeah. So when you talk to patients, always they want to see what is the evidence. So do you have any clinical tests or parameters you will use to show your patient that this really is working?
Oh, yeah, there's so many. I mean, I think what I see most often is cholesterol and being elevated cholesterol. And I look at that differently now than I used to as well. When it turns red is when people start paying attention, but at least, in our group, it doesn't turn red until your LDL is like over 130 or something like that. And I tell them I'm a little bit more strict about this because I know that there's ability to drop that into a more health promoting level. That's a number. It's not the only thing we look at, but that's one of the markers. I'm interested in their overall health and shifts. Diabetes screening, of course, an A1C is very helpful for moving that along. We also are fortunate enough to have body composition analysis, which nowadays is more widespread. A lot of gyms come with this opportunity, or you can even get a home scale that has that. Not to the extent that you obsess over what that number says, but to be able to show a trend in your percent body fat, or what I pay most close attention to is a little chart that shows the visceral fat percentage, which is the sort of spillover of excess fat that collects around all of our inner organs and represents at a certain point an increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And I find that people are most impacted by that number and the chart of that number. And we can say, we can make a difference in this by several lifestyle factors and trend it over time. We talk about, your 80-year-old self, your 85-year-old self. That's what we're doing it for. I want you to be functionally 100, not just 100. But at the same time, sometimes it's hard to think about your 85-year-old self. And so how you feel today and tomorrow and how you move and the energy that you have, that's going to have the biggest impact first. We're talking about little quiet changes over time that create these huge results. And yeah, I share my own stories of, the numbers dropping and all of that. And at the same time, I say, now I have time to spend with my 2 little boys and I feel like I can keep up with them.
There. Yeah, I can tell this is how you can share actually a lot of the coming from your inside, because you model yourself and you have a recipe to share. You have some suggestions from how to manage the stress. So you walk the talk, and that's so important. Then with your clinic experience, how do you extend your knowledge even further outside of the exam room, like to the community? Can you share us more about your community involvement?
Sure, yeah. I still feel very fresh in Rochester and new to the area, but I'm starting to make a lot of these connections that I'm excited about. I have these big ideas of who I'd love to get involved with. I've started making some community connections. You all are a wonderful community connection, of course, and I'm very most excited about that and coming up to the Symposium of Wellness and getting involved with that community. But I also have started on some other fronts, one of which is the medical students and education, working with them to get lifestyle medicine involved in their curriculum. Also working in various parts around Mayo and across the country. I have a talk coming up this weekend where, I'm going to be in San Diego, speaking of, giving a talk about plant-forward nutritional strategies. So I think every time you can branch out into education, that's my main passion, is sharing at as many levels as I can and getting that ripple effect. But eventually I'd love to work with community partners in the restaurants because, food should be celebratory, and restaurants are definitely leading in how we
Mm.
introduce that to people, how people get excited about sustainable plant-forward eating. And if they see something that's a celebratory plant-forward meal on the menu that's just there, they can order it, they like it, it's delicious. You meet people with flavor and you make it accessible in the environment. And I'd love to see more of that, and I'm excited to move forward on those partnerships.
Sure. So when you look at the community, are there any barrier to the community or community members that you can see, and how you can help resolve them?
I think a lot of the barriers these days tend to be, lack of access. For one thing, is lack of access to choices at the restaurants, at some of the areas that people are finding food in the community. One is also some disinformation or misinformation, of which there is much these days, on social media at multiple levels all around them, more maybe than even a few years ago. And so having those kind of, changes and barriers are tricky with the environment around it. We don't live in a bubble. So it's not just our own personal decisions, but, education, I think, still comes first, because when people say, I know how to eat healthy, I say, yes, and, can I, let's share a little bit more about what that looks like. And when they, every day I do a lot of myth busting about what is a healthy choice, and a lot of times we talk about, I can't eat soy foods. Aren't those bad for us? And say, absolutely not. No, that's something that we should be eating. How can I get you to try tofu? I think I even have convinced some of my most hesitant patients to share some of that. But those mis and disinformation, the communication barriers, lack of time also to do that, those are some barriers that we structure on. And so trying to impact with nudges in our environment, whether that's in our communities with, where we get food, or even in our own homes, or making an environment more walkable. We talk about, if you're around, how can you move more throughout your day? Because sedentary, of course, is a huge concern in our communities. Can you just, stand up and move around? Can you find the stairs? I call it like elevator roulette. At Mayo, we have a lot of elevators. So get on the elevator, don't push any buttons, and then get off at the next floor, take the stairs from there to where you work. So there's a lot of creative options out there, but I think it still has to start with education.
So in terms of misinformation, there are two I would write that to see how you deal with. Number one is, I think 2015, the World Health Organization classified processed meat as category 1 carcinogen. And then number two is wine, alcohol. People said it's good for your heart. Used to be 1 drink for women, 2 drinks for men daily is good. Now it says no amount of alcohol is safe. So how do you work with your patients and those, or community members?
For alcohol in general, I think we are moving in a good direction as a whole. In our communities. And what I'm seeing is the younger generation is not as attached to alcohol as they used to be. And in my population of patients, it used to be the thing you needed to do. That's how you get business done. You need to
Right.
be seen doing that. And I encourage them to really be change makers in that space if they're still feeling that. We're too old for peer pressure, I think. At this point in time, you can be the one making the choice and being a model for that. We talk about small steps for a lot of people. They're already starting to track. They've heard this idea that maybe alcohol is not bringing us any health benefits anymore, but habits are hard to break. And with the pandemic, a lot of people got used to that as a stress relief mechanism, and they're still doing that. So, instead of what I used to say, which is just like, yeah, drink less, maybe up to 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day or something like that is probably fine. We do talk about dose and dose response, but I also say, we no longer have any evidence that any amount of alcohol is safe, or recommended. Less is better, none is best. How do I work with you in particular? What does that look like? Does that look like we find out and I say, what does 5 ounces of wine look like? A single serving size. Most of the pours are maybe double that sometimes of what you get. So that's step one, is learning what a serving size is if you're working your way down. Number two is pouring that, capping it, taking the air out and putting it way up high maybe. It's a barrier, and now you have to work a little bit harder to get it. After that, could you not bring it into the house anymore at a certain point? Yeah, you can go get it, sure. But at a certain point, is that too much effort? And then what are you replacing it with? What is it about that alcohol that brings you joy? Is it that you're around friends at that point in time and that's, how you feel? Could you have something else, a spritzer or something like that in your hand if you want something in your hand? Could you do 1 glass of water and 1 glass of alcohol? There's a lot of these little tips and tricks now that people really respond to and that resonate with them. And we talk about going down over time. Some people are all or nothing, and I welcome that. If you are somebody that's like, I'm done and you want to be done, great. But for most people, it's smaller steps in there. So for the alcohol, for sure, processed meats along the same lines, just like you said, tend to be very strongly culturally related, but also treats. And I was that person. I was like, that's my favorite sandwich. I'll never not eat bacon again. But I share with them, people take these hits and they say, you're going to take all the pleasure out of my life. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and I'll just die, a couple years earlier. And that's when I talk to them about risk management. And I say, is that a bet you want to gamble on, that you're going to have a heart attack and die? Probably not. We'll save you. We're very good at keeping you alive these days. But what's the last 10 years of your life going to look like? Is it going to be in a debilitated state? And that's the evidence that we have for eating this dietary pattern. That's an important concept. And I also tell them, you don't have to eat like a sacrificial bunny and be very sad, but you're going to live longer, but you're not happy with what you're eating. Your tastes shift and your cravings shift over time. And I never would have believed it myself, but every next better than choice snowballs into the next and the next. And if you don't like something today, try it in 6 months again. And soon you'll start to crave those things that actually love you back. And the things that you used to love, that you enjoyed, you don't feel good anymore when you eat them. Additionally, with your thoughts of your 85-year-old self. And those come together and really motivate you to make the next better than choice.
Excellent. Well, so it is so true. It kind of help people to see their 85 years old self, or I like the way you say that. Like, we will save you, but think about what kind of a life you're going to deal with, right? So yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I know. And then, whether you wanna at an age you wanna be in a nursing home, you wanna live in your home, so that is the choice that we make. Yeah.
Finding their why are they doing it? Do they have
Yes.
kids that they want to pick up? Do they
Yeah.
have gains and they want to go hiking? Find their why.
Exactly. That is why when you look at it, our 6 pillars are a little bit different from the 6 pillars from ACLM. because we have passion over there. It's your why. And then we put avoidance of risky substance under the nutrition. But yeah.
So Dr. Rainey, so when you are working with the executive patient and then also working at a community, how do you um, bring the conversation, like how they can help the community, like their work, their employees, their work culture, and also in the community partner? Because when community partner talk about the wellness, it may not be exactly the same as what we are thinking. We have a higher maybe as to say a higher expectation of from a nutrition standpoint. We would like to encourage people to adopt a more plan forward meal. May not be exactly what the other community partner thinks. So how do you manage this?
So far, in I don't know how to put it in my work so far. I think the most effective strategy has been the ripple effect, because doing the work ourselves first and coming with that, the challenges and the barriers, and then speaking to other people in your family and having those conversations can be very challenging at first, but they're your loved ones, so you have a little bit of buffer. Or maybe sometimes it's a little bit harder. I don't know. It depends on the family. But in in my case with my family and friends, I find that over time having those conversations over and over again and getting challenges back and getting well, what about this study? Or, I heard this, how does that reconcile what you're saying, is an opportunity to look into it in more depth. And that's what I encourage my patients and my loved ones and family and friends to do, is be open to these discussions and not shutting anybody down and not starting in it from a very judgmental place, which is so tempting to do when you've experienced it and you're excited about it and you feel like this is the right way and we have all this strong evidence to support us. One, it's got to be, for food wise anyway, it's got to be delicious and sustainable. And that's why when I talk to people about this, I encourage they use the words dietary pattern, a whole food, plant predominant dietary pattern. Again, meeting people a little bit where they're at, but encouraging them and challenging them to take the next step and be those models for their friends, family, for their coworkers. Is there something they can shift in their own work environment, which are all different? When we have these conversations, I see the sparks forming, and they're coming out and they're thinking, oh, maybe in my workplace cafeteria I can have one additional thing added instead of trying to take away. At first, just make it added. Or can we, put more art in our stairwells? Can we make it clear how we can do this? Can we do a challenge at work and, have reward system, or just do it for, who's the best at this? So I think it takes a different form depending on every workplace. But the first step is having that conversation non-judgmentally with curiosity and modeling how you do it and sharing your story, just like you all do.
Yeah, I remember, because our current management team, May and I usually will go back home individually. So one will be staying in the office. And I remember initially when I went back, May's three brothers would like to take me to a steakhouse to see how I react. But then later on, they knew we were very serious about it. And then when I went back, even by myself, they'll take me to a vegan restaurant. So yeah, they'll come around, yes.
And it's consistency over time and understanding that not everybody is in the same stage of change as you are. I created a group, a WhatsApp group or something. I call it the Plant Slant or whatever it is, and welcome people to share their ideas and their recipes and their challenges. And, the other day I had to figure out for myself to share somebody who was allergic to soy, beans, and nuts. What do you do there? So every one of those, and you're sharing and other people are seeing it, allows them to spread that to their own communities of family and friends.
So sounds like you are working with community. So what partnership or outreach efforts are you most excited about?
Gosh, I'm excited to talk at your symposium and meet everybody there. I think that'll be a new introduction to some parts of community. I'm also excited to work with the medical students as they're reaching out into the community, looking into gardens, looking into how do we get into high schools and how do we, clinically open this up in different areas like walk-in clinics. I think we're just sort of at the beginning of that journey, and I love that it's education and community both. And then we'll see the contacts in the community that I have. I want to reach out and work with some of the restaurants at some point in time and develop some more of those plant options.
Good. Yeah, I used to like the medical students until one of them told me that when I started my fellowship at Mayo, she wasn't born yet. So now they are not the fun now. Okay, so if you could,
2000, that's their birth years now.
Yeah, I started my fellowship in 1999, but well, anyway. So if you could give the community one practical step to improve health today, what would that be?
I would say add before you subtract. So add one thing to your plate this week, maybe one day this week. And if I could say two things, it would be beans or tofu. Try it. Find a tofu recipe. You can do anything to tofu, you can do to meat. You just got to get the texture right. Super strong source of plant proteins. Beans and greens is my goal for 2026. So one meal this week, adding that to your plate, going from
Absolutely. there. I highly recommend stinky tofu.
Stinky tofu.
I love stinky tofu. Yes, that's my most favorite.
What is that?
It's a cultural food. So we also respect the cultural food as well. Well, that's some place where in Asia, you can go explore. Definitely. Yeah.
My parents lived in Okinawa for many years, so I'll ask them too.
Oh, well, it's quite a pleasure that we have you have this wonderful conversation, and it's kind of it is always fun to hear how other healthcare provider offering the tip and how you interact with your patient to give them the tip, and which you can help many other healthcare providers who are on the journey try to have the conversation, very important conversation with their clients as well. So yeah, we can't wait to see you at the conference, and we look forward to many opportunity to collaborate together in the community as well.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you being on.
Yeah. So yeah, Dr. J, that's a close our conversation today.
Sure. Thanks for joining us and hearing Step to Wellness. I'm Dr. J.
I'm May.
Guiding you toward whole person health, one step
and one bite at a time.
See you next time.